Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving headfirst into something that's really, really crucial if you spend any time on an indoor bike.
Hmm.
It's about finding that smart balance between your effort and, well, your recovery.
Yeah,
Whether you're, chasing peak performance or just aiming for a great workout, understanding this work to rest thing is honestly a game changer.
absolutely. And look, we get it. You want the insights, the good stuff, without getting totally bogged down in like overly complex science.
Right.
So think of this as your express route. Understanding why those recovery moments in your cycling class, or maybe the lack of them, are just as vital as the hard pedaling itself.
Okay, so for this deep dive, we've pulled some great material. It's kind of blending practical experience with sports science principles, drawing from the art and science of work-to-rest ratios in indoor cycling.
Exactly.
Our mission today, it's really to pull out the key actionable stuff,
Yeah.
how this work-rest dynamic really shapes your workouts, whether you're the one designing them or just, showing up to ride. Let's get into it.
So yeah, the source really hits the nail on the head early on. It emphasizes that this work-to-rest ratio, it's not some minor detail you can just gloss over.
It's fundamental.
Is absolutely foundational for effective indoor cycling. They actually observed, quite a few workouts that looked super intense on the surface,
Yeah.
but were maybe setting riders up for problems down the line because the recovery periods just weren't, well, properly thought out.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit. So it's not just about hammering away and seeing big numbers flash up on the screen. There's more to it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And here's a really key insight. Recovery isn't just hitting pause. It's not downtime. It's an active and, frankly, vital part of the whole training process.
Active, how so?
Think of it as the body's chance to reset, to
Yeah.
clear out all those byproducts from the hard work.
Like lactic acid and stuff. Yeah.
Exactly, things like that. And crucially, it's the time when your body adapts and actually gets stronger because of the effort you just put in. So the big takeaway, recovery isn't passive. It's the active adaptation phase. That's where the magic happens, really.
That makes a lot of sense. So if you're constantly skipping recovery or cutting it short, it's kind of like trying to download a huge file on really weak Wi-Fi.
Huh, yeah, that's a great analogy.
It might get there eventually, but it's going to be slow, frustrating, and maybe incomplete.
Exactly. You consistently shortchange your recovery. You're essentially hindering your body's ability to tackle the next hard effort properly. You might feel like you're being tough, pushing through,
Yeah, powering through.
but you're probably limiting your potential for actual long-term improvement.
Okay. Now, this is where I think things get really interesting. When we start talking about those higher intensity efforts, the ones that really push you.
Yes, precisely. When you're working above your lactate threshold, so think zone 4 efforts, zone 5, anything harder than that.
That tough stuff.
That's where intentional, adequate recovery becomes absolutely non-negotiable. These kinds of efforts put, well, significant demands on everything. Cardiovascular system, muscles, even your nervous system.
And, okay, what happens if you don't give your body that proper chance to regroup after those really hard pushes?
Well, simply put, without enough rest, your body just won't be able to consistently repeat those high-quality intervals. You might start noticing your power dropping off,
Mm-hmm.
your form might start to break down, and ultimately you'll likely hit a plateau in your progress. Or, as the source points out, you could even see your performance actually decline over time.
So it's not just about gritting your teeth and suffering through. It's about being smart, strategic, designing workouts intelligently from start to finish.
Exactly.
Now, the source gets into the science behind this, right? It provides a really useful breakdown, recommended work-to-rest ratios based on different power zones.
Yes, there's this table they present. It outlines the 7 power zones, the intensity levels, usually as a percentage of your functional threshold power, or FTP.
Right, FTP.
Typical work durations for each zone, and then the recommended rest periods. It's a fantastic tool, really. It clearly shows how different intensities demand different recovery strategies.
Okay, let's maybe walk through a couple of these zones just to give listeners a clearer picture of how this works. Zone 1, that's active recovery, right?
Right.
Less than 55% FTP.
Yep, super easy.
Work might be 10, 30 minutes, maybe longer. And obviously no specific rest recommended because, well, it is the rest.
Exactly. It's very low intensity. The whole point is promoting blood flow, helping you recover from harder stuff. Then you move up to zone 2, that's endurance, 55 to 75% FTP.
The long, steady rides.
Right. Here you might be riding for, 1 hour, 5 hours even. Again, no specific rest intervals within that sustained effort usually. The goal there is building that aerobic base, being able to hold effort for longer.
Okay, but now when we start climbing into the higher zones, That's where these rest periods really kick in, yeah. Take zone 4 threshold work, 91 to 105% of FTP. Getting uncomfortable now. Efforts might last, what, 8 to 30 minutes? And the recommendation is for 4 to 10 minutes of rest. That gives a work-to-rest ratio of maybe 2 to 1, even 3 to 1. That feels like quite a bit of recovery.
It is, yeah. And it directly reflects the physiological strain of holding that kind of effort. You're working right near your lactate threshold. That longer rest lets your body clear out some of those metabolic byproducts we mentioned.
Get ready for the next hit.
Exactly. Get ready for the next bout of intensity. Then you've got zone 5 VO yours max. That's 106 to 120% FTP. Really hard work.
Okay.
Here, work intervals are shorter, maybe 3 to 8 minutes, and the recommended rest is often equal to the work, a 1-to-1 ratio. This is where you're pushing your maximum oxygen uptake.
Right at the limit.
And that near equal rest is absolutely crucial if you want to be able to repeat those high-intensity efforts with quality.
And then it gets even shorter and sharper, right? Zone 6, anaerobic capacity. That's like 121 to 150% FTP. Bursts of 30 seconds to maybe 3 minutes.
Yep, really punchy stuff. And interestingly, the rest periods here actually become longer relative to the work. You might rest 1.5 to 6 minutes. So the work-to-rest ratio flips. It could be 1 to 2, even 1 to 5. More rest than work.
Wow.
And finally, zone 7, neuromuscular power. Those super short all-out sprints, maybe 5 to 15 seconds, they basically require full recovery, sometimes up to 5 minutes. So the ratio there can vary a lot depending on the goal.
That's fascinating how the rest increases relatively as the intensity gets higher and shorter.
It is. And what's really interesting to note, as the source points out, is that these specific ratios, they often come from the world of structured endurance training for, say, competitive cyclists.
People training for specific races or goals.
Exactly. Guidelines designed to help athletes hit very precise performance targets. However, and this is key, they still provide a really valuable framework for understanding the principles at play in our everyday indoor cycling classes, too.
Which brings us nicely to what the author calls the art of indoor cycling class design. Because, okay, these scientific ratios are great on paper, but the actual experience of teaching or being in a group indoor cycling class can be, well, pretty different, can it?
Totally different. The author makes a really important point here. While those science-based ratios are kind of the ideal benchmark, especially if you're coaching someone with very specific training goals.
Like a one-on-one scenario.
Right. But the dynamic, the social environment of a group fitness class, that throws in a whole bunch of other factors. You've got the group energy, the music rhythm, the overall vibe, and let's be honest, you need to keep it fun, keep people motivated.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, face it, telling a room full of people who are buzzing from the music and the effort that they now need to sit and spin super easy for 8 whole minutes after a hard interval might just kill the mood, you know?
Exactly. Long, strictly prescribed recoveries, while maybe physiologically optimal on paper, might feel really disruptive or even, demotivating in that group setting. So instructors often have to get creative. Find ways to blend the science with the practical need to keep the class flowing, engaged, and feeling good.
It really sounds like instructors are constantly doing this balancing act then, trading off maybe the perfect physiological stimulus against the reality of keeping a group energized and wanting to come back.
It's a real art, absolutely. A balancing act is the perfect way to put it.
So how does this actually work in practice, in a real class? The source gives a pretty insightful example focusing on VO Euromax training, Zone 5, in that group setting.
They do, and it's a perfect illustration of this art meets science thing.
Okay.
So think about a typical Zone 5 workout. Textbook ratio might be, say, 1 minute hard intervals, followed by 1 minute of recovery, that 1-to-1 ratio we talked about.
Okay.
But in a group class, an instructor might choose to do those same 1-minute intervals, but then shorten the recovery down to maybe just 30 seconds.
So now it's a 2-to-1 work-to-rest ratio.
Exactly. And on the surface, you might think, hang on, that's not enough recovery for proper VO Euromax work.
Right, you're not getting that full minute the chart suggested.
And here's the clever part the author highlights. It's about the coaching strategy, how those initial intervals are approached.
Yeah. Okay. What's the strategy?
The key is for the instructor to guide the riders to work hard during those first few intervals, maybe aiming for like a 9 out of 10 on perceived exertion.
So really tough.
Really tough, yes. But crucially, not going absolutely flat out max effort right from the very first one.
Okay, hold back just a tiny bit initially.
Exactly. This allows people to actually accumulate a good chunk of time working within that high-intensity Zone 5 without completely blowing up and fatiguing too early.
So it's almost like you're strategically building up fatigue over a series of slightly submaximal efforts instead of trying to hit your absolute peak power every single time.
Precisely. That's a great way to put it. And as the set goes on, maybe 3, 4, 5 intervals in, that natural fatigue will start to build up.
Yeah, inevitably.
And by that 4th or 5th interval, riders might indeed reach that point of failure. Or they might find it really tough to hold the power in zone 5. But, as the author points out, this can actually be an intentional outcome.
Intentional failure.
Well, yeah, in a way. You've effectively created a longer overall VO max stimulus. It's just spread out across these engaging intervals with slightly shorter rests between them.
Okay, I see. You get the total time in zone, but chunked differently.
Exactly. And this is crucial, comes what the author calls paying the piper.
Paying the piper. I like that. What does it mean?
It means after that tough set with those shorter rests, it becomes absolutely essential to build in a much more substantial recovery period afterwards.
Ah, okay. Catch up on the rest later.
Right. This might mean a whole song of really easy pedaling, zone 1 or zone 2, let the body genuinely recover, reset, and get ready for whatever comes next in the workout.
Got it. So you can cheat the rest during the set, but you have to make up for it immediately after.
You have to make up for it, yes. And this whole strategic approach, it isn't just for VO max work, is it? Can you apply this to those even higher zones too?
Yeah, zone 6, zone 7.
Absolutely. Yeah. The same basic principle works. You start with slightly submaximal efforts for those really short, sharp bursts in zone 6 or 7. You allow fatigue to build across the set.
Knowing you won't hit peak power on the last one, maybe.
Right. Exactly. You acknowledge that performance might dip a bit on those later reps, and then critically, you ensure there's a really significant recovery period afterwards that matches the total amount of hard work done, even if the work intervals themselves are only, say, 20 or 30 seconds long.
Okay. So it all seems to circle back to this core idea. Recovery is absolutely non-negotiable in effective class design, especially when you're pushing riders into those high-intensity zones.
That's the bottom line.
Mm.
Whether you stick rigidly to the science-backed ratios, or you cleverly adjust the intensity to allow for shorter rests, or you use this kind of fatigue accumulation, then extended recovery strategies, the fundamental principle is the same. If you ask people to work really hard, you must provide a clear, effective way for them to recover properly.
And ultimately, it really sounds like crafting a truly great indoor cycling session is about finding that sweet spot, doesn't it? That balance between the physiology, the science, and the art of creating an experience that's engaging, motivating, and just feels good.
Precisely. It's not just about hitting specific numbers or following guidelines like a robot. The real goal, I think, is designing workouts that challenge people, help them improve, yes, but also leave them feeling accomplished and eager to come back for more.
Yeah.
All while still respecting the body's basic need for adaptation and recovery. That's the blend.
Okay, so let's try and bring this all together then. The big takeaway here seems to be that effective indoor cycling. It's not just about how hard you can pedal, it's just as much, maybe even more, about how thoughtfully you weave recovery into the whole thing. It's this constant dance between pushing your limits and then giving your body the time it needs to reset, adapt, and get stronger. And that's shaped by both the science, the physiology, and the practical side of different training settings, especially a lively group class.
Yeah, absolutely. And that raises a really interesting point for everyone listening, actually.
Right.
As you do your own indoor cycling workouts,
Yeah.
or even if you just watch others, maybe start paying a bit more attention to those work-to-rest ratios.
Become more aware of them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you notice a difference?
Yeah.
How you feel during, after, how you perform later? Does it change based on how much recovery you get? Maybe even, glance back at that power zone chart idea we talked about. See how it lines up with different classes you take.
Yeah.
It might just give you a whole new perspective on what's actually happening in those sessions and how your body's responding to it all.
That's a great point. Food for thought. Well, thanks for taking this deep dive with us today into this really crucial balance of effort and recovery in indoor cycling.
My pleasure.
Until our next deep dive, keep those wheels turning and, yeah, remember to make that recovery just as intentional as your effort.